Hi-lo!
Welcome everybody to another episode of Ambition After Hours. And today we're going to talk about negotiation techniques and how to be a better negotiator. Specifically, we're going to pull the key points and overall method that Chris Voss talks about in this book, Never Split the Difference. So Britt and I were talking about our favorite books, and I always talk about this one. I think I've read it twice and listened to it once, and obviously refamiliarize myself with the content for this episode. And she had also read it, and it's something that I think is so important for women in particular. I mean, we're less likely to negotiate and more likely to accept an offer. Currently, we make 80 cents on the dollar to men in the US. So I think it's just important for us to really step into confidence and get those better deals for ourselves.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think maybe I looked at it from a different lens than you because you're like more finance, but I looked at it from a marketing lens and how like it's so crazy that the amount of emotion someone has impacts the decisions they make like so quickly.
Yeah, that's very true. So his whole thing is about negotiation being very emotional rather than logical, but we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
But first, it's time for our high and our low.
Hi-lo! So guys, you know, every episode we do a high and a low to kick things off. And maybe what I will do is I'll start today with my high. My week was so good. Can I tell you, I got so much done, and specifically like just cleaned my office.
I love that
and
for
it
you.
is like so clean and organized, and I set up like a monitor that attaches to like a separate computer to run Netflix, and like you know, so I like have good background. I like my office is becoming like a comfortable space for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's so important.
Yeah, and it was a little chaotic. Like there was a lot of stuff I had to go through and throw out, or you know, expired catalogs and whatnot, but now it's like so clean and I'm loving it. When I went in there this morning to prep for the podcast, I was like, oh, like I can see my counter and my desk, which is so nice.
It made me think of so fresh and so clean. If you're an 80s baby, I don't need to say what the reference for that is.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was my high, just like we did that vision board with all those girls last weekend, and that was great. And then I took my vision board and incorporated it to my large pin board, and then that's kind of what got the ball moving. I was like, I need a place to like display this that I can look at it every day. So then I overhauled my whole office.
I love that.
Yeah.
My vision board from that day is still sitting on my kitchen table because I haven't found a place where I want to put it yet. But it's on the to-do list for sure.
Yeah, well, just don't wait until June to do it, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Point taken.
Yeah, what was your high?
Yeah. So as some of you know, some seasons I have had a hate-hate relationship with golf. Some seasons I have had a hate-hate-love relationship with golf. I think this season or this winter I'm having a love-hate relationship with golf. So I finally learned how to have fun. This year, one of my goals is to detach from the result and focus on the action. Okay. I'm a very results-focused person.
You are, yeah.
And in things like golf, it just fucks up your life to be like that. Sorry for the swearing, but you all know that's who I am. So I had so much fun playing golf, and then it turned out, this is indoor golf, so you know, and it might not happen again. I just want to preface it by saying that, but I shot an 88, which is so crazy. And so I'd just like to throw a shout out to Terry from Golf 360 in Windermere. We're not sponsored or anything, but he helps me with my swing, and he's kind of a cheerleader. So we were playing and halfway through, or maybe 3/4 of the way through, he came and he's like, "You're gonna do it today," because I've been trying to break 100 forever. So
okay, that
was
so
my
exciting.
high. It's very exciting.
Yeah, like I wish we could have like confetti, like you broke 100, because like you've been really trying.
I have been. I've been doing the things. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been doing all the things. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Guys, clap for Jen in the comments. We love that. All right, now's our favorite time. When is our low though?
Yeah. So I can start with low if you want.
Yeah, sure.
My
Big sigh.
2026 is about really prioritizing my health. As some of you may know, I had a really big change in my career environment last year. And good or bad, I think change really deeply affects me in a kind of crazy way. And I let a lot of things for my health go. And I'm getting those back in 2026. So as any good numbers person does, I went to see a nurse practitioner and got like my body composition done so that I could really know where my starting point was. And honestly, it sucks so bad. I didn't think that I had let things go that far. And so that really sucked. And what made it worse, and I'm going to throw shade at my husband right now. What made it worse is, as a general rule, I never go completely off the wagon with respect to my health. I do yoga, I lift, I eat relatively healthy during the week. It's kind of a shit show on the weekend, but I'm working on it. But if you were to look at just how we live our lives, I am so much healthier than my husband, just like on a regular and consistent basis. And he listens to this, and I feel like he would agree with that. And his freaking stats are so much better than mine. What the hell? Anyway, that was my low. I'll get over it. But right now I'm just like in the very immature life is not fair mode.
No, but I love that you have a starting point now that you can work towards. Because
Yay.
you are that numbers person.
Yes.
I mean, like, you work so hard at cracking 100 in golf. Now you're onto the body thing. I get it. You have to always have a goal that you're reaching.
But I also have to release the result and focus on the action. Our
we'll
Jess
see how
from
that
our
goes.
last episode or our first episode in January will be happy to hear that.
Yeah. She'll be like, oh, what I say matters, you know? What I say. My low today is Meta Business Suite. Yeah. Yesterday I spent like a significant amount of time being like, what the heck is going on here? So they did a bunch of updates where slowly they're forcing people to use AI in their marketing. And essentially what people are doing right now is just paying to train their AI, right? Like, so I have been using some of the tools, but not all of the tools. But now they're making it super hard for you to opt out of anything. Like, it's just a pain in my butt, really. And then the audience targeting was all messed up yesterday, and I was like, what is going on? I just want to get this like done. But no, it took a little bit longer than I anticipated. So, yeah, Meta, like, work on your business suite.
Get it together, Meta.
Get it together, Meta. And you know what? I think like a lot of people who deal within Meta Business Suite like find it extremely frustrating. It's not like user friendly at all.
Yeah, and we don't have to use AI for everything. You can use it for some things, and we do have an episode coming up about that. But don't force us to, Meta.
Yeah, if you want to opt out of audience, whatever, then I should be able to opt out and choose my own audience.
It's true.
You know. Anyways, so that was my low. I'm just like, oh, great. So I scoured the internet and ChatGPT yesterday, just trying to find out what's the workaround or what happened. So that was fun. What turned into a 3-hour project for me was really like a 6-hour project because I was like, what? Like, I need to just find out what the workaround is here.
Yeah.
And do it. But anyways, that was my low. Now I know.
Yeah, now you know.
Yep.
The more you know. I don't know why all these like 80s babies
She's musically
jingles
inclined
are
today.
in my head today. But
All right.
all right.
Well, let's jump into it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've read this book, I want to say 2.5 times. And I say half times because I just read it on speed, or listened to it on speed.
She means she listened to
this.
it on speed, not she took speed and then read the book.
Yeah,
Just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, exactly. I when you can speed things up. It's a great book. And I didn't want to like it because it was written by a guy and an ex FBI agent.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the book completely flips how we're taught to think about negotiation. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of emotional intelligence stuff in there, which is really good for leadership. I think it really drives home the point that it's not about being aggressive or logical. I think the logical point we all naturally do. I think as women, the fact that he drives home that it's not about being aggressive should really help us adopt some of these principles and use them to change that 85 cents or 80 cents on the dollar, whatever it is.
Pay gap.
Pay gap, yeah, for sure. I found it so interesting to listen to the examples he has in there about how these things have worked in very high pressure, crazy situations. So
Yeah, he goes into like a whole like he goes into like actually a couple of stories about hostage situations and how he used these tactics to get obviously what he wants, right? Out of the negotiation, which is like pretty crazy that we can take that high pressure scenario and bring it back to, sales
yeah.
and work and everyday negotiating.
Yeah, I agree. So if it works to free a hostage, it's got to work when, I'm negotiating with my husband over who should do the dishes. There's literally 10 dirty wine glasses. And I know I made them dirty, but that doesn't mean I want to clean them. Sitting on the sink. So maybe we'll try it out later.
Yeah, you should definitely try it out and record how that goes. But okay, well, let's jump into it. So I want to talk a little bit about like how the brain works in a negotiation and like what people feel internally, because in the book he starts talking about like how people perceive negotiation. And I think we know this from like our friends and girlfriends that date guys that aren't good for them, but he says like you can't logic someone out of a feeling.
Yeah, isn't that true?
And didn't you come like grow up with girlfriends and their boyfriends would be so shitty and you'd be like, yeah, but he did this and he did this and he did this, and she'd be like, I still love him. And you're like, okay, I really can't logic you out of a feeling. Like that is really how our brains work.
Yeah. For me, I took a very different take on logic out of feelings. I'm sorry, kids. Words seem to be hard for me today. For me, I was thinking about times when I'm super irritated.
Okay.
Or I have lots of information coming at me. Maybe I'm in a high stress situation. And logically, I know that it's best for me to calm the fuck down. But naming the emotion first and saying, okay, I'm feeling super irritated right now.
Yeah.
And feeling it, where it is in my body, all of that is actually acknowledging where I'm at works so much better than you're going to be more successful if you calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
That doesn't do anything. Just because I know I should behave better doesn't mean I'm going to.
That I'm going to. Yeah.
But if I acknowledge, like where I'm at in that moment. So I think for me, lots of this stuff can be applied to self-management. Well, it appears that I need a lot of self-management because that's some of the things I took from this book. Anyway, let's move on.
The truth. Yeah. No, I think like he does say though, stress does shut down rational thinking.
Yeah. It's the amygdala hijack or something like that.
Yeah.
All the adrenaline gets in your body.
So if you're like in a really high stress situation, don't make a decision. Well, I mean, unless you really have to.
True. I enjoy the feeling of being a little bit amped up. So there's probably...
She's like,
anyway.
Love when I live in stress mode.
That is my happy place. So there's probably a lot I could learn from tempering that.
Tempering it. But then he also said that people want relief. They don't necessarily want information. Like they might be in a situation where they're asking you a lot of questions, but they're not asking because they need they need the information. They need that information maybe to feel relief.
Yeah, maybe.
So if you find yourself in a situation where you're dealing with a client, employee, friend, loved one that is, over asking those questions, that's how you recognize, like even in sales situations, that's how you recognize that there's like a little bit of stress there. And they're not asking, like they're asking you a lot of questions because they feel like they need the relief. They are not like not trusting you. They just
are self-soothing. It's such a big eye-opener that he forces home over and over and over in this book that I love, is that all negotiation is emotional. None of it is
Yeah.
logical.
None.
How we buy things, how we decide to surrender from robbing banks, like all of those things, big decisions or small decisions, they're all emotionally based. And then we fill the logic in after to support our emotional decision.
Yeah, like we write the story after.
Yeah. So this is the decision I made because I felt X feeling in the moment. And now here are all the logical reasons I'm going to use to justify that decision. And it's so crazy that that's true. It is true. He proves it in the book, but it's just kind of,
You don't picture your brain working that way.
no, you would think it would go the other way.
But yeah, our brains are weird.
Yeah.
You talked about tactical empathy earlier today on how you were using it on Ryan. Do you want to give an example of what tactical empathy is?
I can give you an example. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this particular podcast because I don't want him to feel like an experiment. Although he's been married to me for long enough, he probably knows I do shit like this all the time. So let's just give a definition first so everyone understands what we mean by tactical empathy over just empathy.
Maybe we need to caveat by empathy is not like a strategic tool, or it's a tool. It's not a weakness.
Yeah, empathy actually, even in leadership, is
Great to have.
so valuable and so important.
Because I know people who think of empathy as like a weakness. Like they're like, oh, I'm too empathetic to my clients, my employees, my friends, my family. I care too much. Or like it is like a strong point to have.
I think that they're talking about sympathy because people confuse that all the time. Empathy is, I can understand your point of view and how you got to that decision. It's not, I feel for you. I feel for you, that's sympathy. And I think if we have sympathy for everything going on for everyone in our lives, employees and bosses alike, you'd never, how? My brain would explode.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be possible. It just sounds a little bit like sympathy to me. And he does a really good job of explaining the difference between the two in the book. So I highly recommend if you get a chance, like do a deep dive on this. Mm-hmm. His definition of tactical empathy is actively recognizing and verbalizing the other person's emotion and perspective without agreeing with them.
Okay, let's
That's
do it
key.
as a test. We won't tell Ryan
Okay.
how you used it on him. However, but we can do it as a test. I'll come up with a problem.
Okay.
Oh my God, Jen. Like Meta Business Suite this week was so annoying. I'm so frustrated. And you weren't there to help me.
It seems like you have a lot of frustration around not being able to accomplish what you wanted to.
Yes, I do. It took me way too long.
It took you way too long?
Yeah, it did take me way too long to do it.
So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Okay, now we're getting into other tools,
Yeah.
which we'll get there.
But example, she related with me. She mirrored me. She
Labeled the feeling,
Labeled the
yeah.
feeling. Like these are all tips from the book, and you'll have to read it to fully understand it. But I think tactical empathy is good because you're automatically not telling them that they're wrong.
Yeah, you're just telling them that you understand where they're coming from and the possible results.
And what is like one thing that everybody always wants? They want to be understood.
Yeah,
They want to be heard.
Yeah.
Heard and understood, right?
I think for us women in particular, it's important to understand that this isn't agreeing with them. So for example, if someone says, we're worried about budget, I completely understand that we all have budgets and it's important to us to make sure that we meet them. Of course, that would be the example that I come up with. But that doesn't mean that you don't fit into the budget or that you should charge them less because they're worried about the budget. Like you don't agree that issue means you should lower your price, but you understand, identify, and repeat so they feel heard, so they know that you understand that they do have a budget and that they're worried about hitting it. And now you've heard them, and now you can start filling in why that worry does not apply to paying me what I'm worth.
Yeah. And you know what's actually a really great tool on that is tactile empathy creates trust without over explaining. And I think as women sometimes we have the tendency to want to jump in and explain why we're worth something all the time.
Yeah, we want to negotiate with ourselves.
Yeah, or, like we want to like, oh,
We want to prove it.
Yeah, we want to prove to the client why they're worth it, or we want to, like over explain why we would be a good fit.
Yeah.
But if you're using tactical empathy, that's enough words, babe. Like, you just have to do those, like, understanding where they're coming from, naming the feeling, and then move on.
Yeah, I think something that he mentions in the book that I think is so great is negotiations aren't about you. Even though it's factored into the end result that you want to get, it's about the person you're negotiating with, 100%. The focus is on them, what their needs are, how you marry those needs with, whatever it is you're trying to sell or whatever emotion you're trying to get them to, fair enough. But it's 100% about them. And it reminds me of this quote that the BNI people used to say all the time. At least that's where I first heard it. I don't know where it's from. Please don't kick me off the internet. It says, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth and you should use them accordingly. And I know that sounds harsh,
but I think
I love that quote. I said it to someone one day and it did not go over well. So I don't think it's a quote you can say to others. That I did learn that. But I think if we all remember that in every interaction we have, one, it'll help us stop trying to prove ourselves so much.
Right.
And 2, it will help us learn how to be an active listener, which is so hard. It sounds easy, but it's super freaking hard.
Yeah. So how do you know that you're active listening opposed to not active listening?
That's a great question. I don't know how to do it yet. No, I don't know how to do it consistently yet. But the theory is this. Most of the time when we're talking, rather than actually focusing on what the other person is saying, particularly in a negotiation setting, we're already trying to plan our response. So instead of listening to the other person and acknowledging what they have to say, really diving deep into what their needs are, instead we are spending the whole side of our conversation planning what we want to say next to get them where we want to go. So really, instead of having a 2-person conversation, we end up having 2 one-person conversations. They're planning all the things they want to say to you to get you where you want to go, and you're planning all the things you want to say to them to get them where you want them to go. And so you're not really communicating at all. And that's when you get into this, fine, let's just split the difference, which really is a lose-lose situation. Right. The idea behind this book and the idea that he so aptly talks about is splitting the difference is lose-lose. Proper negotiation should get you to a win-win-win scenario. Like everyone feels good about what happened and both parties get exactly what they need. Win-win-win.
Right. Yeah. And then so they talk about when you're like active listening, the power of like prolonged silence or like space for silence. Not only do we use that as a tactic sometimes, because when you give silence, sometimes people get uncomfortable and they talk more and they tell you more and they, disclose more and things like that, right? Of course, you want them to like continue talking. But it honestly, like, I think that also creates space for honesty, right? Like, not only are you putting them into like a situation where they might feel the need to fill the gap, but they're probably going to feel the need to be like a little bit more honest in what they say, because they're not like pre-thinking. They're actively thinking about what to say there. They're not taking the time to lie, is what I'm saying.
Yes. This takes so much discipline. There are very few times in my life where I have successfully applied this. So a million years ago, really tough team member. This was back in Colby Steckley Elion days, like way, way back. We had somebody who we had tried a whole bunch of different systems and processes with them to kind of get things getting done on time. And it seemed like no matter what system we implemented or what we tried or how much support we gave, we were constantly in this, let's just do everything at the last minute, which doesn't give partners what the time they need to give the clients good service. It creates a whole host of issues. And we really appreciated this team member. We wanted them to move up, but it was never going to happen with this happening because it just creates chaos all the time. So I was talking with a coach at the time and I was trying to figure out, I feel like we're getting lip service. Like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah, this will help. And nothing is helping. And this particular coach at the time told me that you need to ask what, where, when, how questions, know why, and then you need to be silent. Say nothing. Just sit there and stare at them silently until they come up with some sort of answer. And if they don't, then you just wait a very long time and then you ask the question again and over and over and over again. And I failed so hard. I think I did it once. And then she just sat there and stared at me. One of my business partners was there too. And then so my business partner asked a question. I was like, look at us sitting here in silence. Aren't we great? And then it felt like forever. And then of course me is like, would it help if we did this? Would it help if we did that? And I just...
You were the one who was filling the silence.
Yes, because it was so uncomfortable. And had I been stronger, perhaps, that relationship would have worked out differently and maybe we would have got some results. Or maybe it would have ended up in the same way. But I have to tell you, I want this skill so badly.
Yeah.
The ability to shut up. Anyone who knows me knows I don't possess that, but I understand that it has huge
I don't
value.
Possess that either. I totally. There's been a couple of times in specifically probably since I met you that I've tried this because we've talked about this tool a lot, and sometimes I'm like, I just want to spill over because I can't shut up.
Yeah.
I just can't. But I thought it was interesting in the book how he also talked about if you are having a hard time maybe with a client, the active listening and the slow to response eases or slows escalation.
That's true.
So if someone comes in hot and heavy at a 10, by doing this, maybe they leave the conversation at a 5.
Yeah, and he has some really great examples of that. And he uses, is it coming up here? He uses mirroring with that. So for example, I'll be like, I'm so frustrated. I hate this. This person won't do anything I ask. And all you would say is, they won't do anything you ask. And then you stay completely silent. Yeah. And you just keep doing that over and over and over again until they talk themselves into calm. And then by the time you've done that enough that they're at a 5 instead of at a 15, then you can actually get to the root of what the problem is rather than, just dealing with someone who's been hijacked by adrenaline and they're just going to give you the emotions of how they perceive the conversation, and you're not going to get the information about what truly their motives are, what they really want the solution to be, all of those things that will help you in a negotiation.
Yeah, and I might suck at the silence thing, but I think I'm really good at the mirroring thing.
You think you're really good at the mirroring thing?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm really good at the mirroring thing.
We would just go back and forth forever, and this would be the worst podcast we ever taped.
But if that was one tool I use out of the book the most, it would be mirroring for sure.
Do you know what one I want to try, but I think would be so weird on me?
What?
You've probably all heard me say that I have been blessed with the voice of a leprechaun. I speak at a very high pitch and very, very quickly. He talks about in this book the late night FM DJ voice.
Oh yeah, where you tone it down.
It's very soft and very slow and very deep. And I've been playing with this through the week, talking to myself in these different voices, and it's so weird.
Yeah.
I don't know if
what?
I could do it.
I naturally have a deeper voice. I don't know, a deeper woman's voice at least. So I don't know. If I talked at is it an octave or something? If I talked it slightly lower, I think people would be like, is she okay?
I think for me, my best bet is just to soften and manage cadence. If I could speak slower and more softly, I think for me, that's the FM DJ voice. Because talking like this, no one's going to buy that from me ever.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, to talk slower and like a nighttime DJ. I love it.
And here on Ambition After Hours.
But I think the next thing I want to talk about is just how he talks about the power of being someone feeling like they've been heard. After you've done the active listening and you've done the pausing and you've taken them from a 15 to a 5. He talks about how just that feeling of oh, she listened to me. She heard what I had to say. She listened to me kind of vent it out. It's it actually like calms their nervous system. And then in turn creates like a bond of trust, like subconsciously between you and that person.
Which allows you to get to the bottom of what they really want out of the negotiation. And how cool is that if you really think about it, right? Because if you're thinking about negotiation as a win-win rather than like a zero-sum game where somebody has to win and somebody has to lose, if you can get that person to feel heard, mirror them enough so that you have clarity, then they have basically told you, ideally, exactly what they want out of this situation. From a sales perspective, if someone tells you exactly what their biggest fears are, their emotions around it,
What they need.
you've built trust with them, all you have to do is frame a sentence that identifies the emotion and tells them that you will fix that emotion and how you're going to fix it. And I mean, I'm not saying you could put any price tag on it that you want, but you have fed their emotional need and created trust. And so the likelihood that you'll be able to start getting the value you deserve for your services, it's astronomical.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like the thing I'm going through in 2026 is like getting the value for my services, you know? Like as a woman, sometimes we can feel that like, you know, you want to help everybody, and I do still feel like that, but in talking with you, obviously, and, you know, people like Jess and stuff, like getting the value for what you do is so important too.
It is so important. When I was kind of role playing some questions with this, with ChatGPT, because I wanted to practice playing it out, I used your business and having like a sales conversation with a current customer who's underpaying to get them to the level that they should be paying for the services provided, and kind of role played out because it's so counterintuitive. The negotiation technique, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. The negotiation technique that they use here that we're going to talk about later, it's called the Ackerman model. I don't think I'm saying that right.
We can go right into that since you are going that way. I'm cool with that.
It talks about anchoring a value, and ideally you want them to anchor the value, or I think you could do it either way depending on the situation. And then you negotiate your way up, which is so backwards to anything
which is
I've
so
ever
backwards
done.
than you would ever even
You're
think.
like, I'll throw out 5,000 and hope I end up at 2,500. Like, you know, then they'll feel like they're getting a great deal.
Yeah.
But no, he talks about, you know, finding a number that everyone's comfortable with, and then basically asking them enough clarifying questions to understand their needs more deeply, and then addressing those needs to level up the amount that you're currently talking about, which is so cool.
Yeah. Which is like, and he also talks about like when you're quoting them, don't quote them at like even dollar value. Always make sure it's like 586.46, or like, because then it makes it seem like you've put even more thought into what that number should be. But I think anyone in their sane mind, if someone was like, I'm going to come in there and yeah, okay, maybe you're comfortable with this price, but I'm going to solve 4 of these pain points that you said that you have, and this is the new number, you're obviously going to be like, yeah. Like what I'm saying is like the way they looked at it would be so backwards in my brain, but also makes just so much more sense to do that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It takes a bit of confidence, you know, to apply some of these techniques. And so for me, I think what I'll do is I'll practice in my personal life. So, hey, baby, you have that to look forward to in the coming months. Let's see if I can manipulate my husband. I don't mean it like that.
But this book isn't about manipulation.
No, it isn't.
Right?
It's about win-win-win, right? Yeah. So the whole idea is based on everybody getting what they need. So, you know, but I think practicing, he does say to practice in your personal life for sure.
Yeah.
And try to go from there.
He also did say anytime a client, family member, whoever you're trying to split the difference with offers the like word fair, like, oh, let's just make it fair if we just meet in the middle, or, you know, is it fair to say like we need to nip that in the butt, because the minute you do fair, it's a lose, lose, lose across the board.
Yeah, he does mention in certain things where the negotiation has derailed so far, you can use it as kind of a power move. But basically, if memory serves, he talks about how fair is basically an inflammatory word. As soon as you say, let's make it fair, or that's not fair, you are basically calling the other person unfair.
Yeah, unfair.
You're calling them a liar. All of these negative emotions they'll feel by using the word fair.
Yeah.
So we want to stay away from that, which is so funny because I would venture to guess that all of us have just thought, oh, we just want what's fair. How many times have you heard that or used it or had it said to you and felt that emotion? But at the same time, when you're delivering it, you always think, well, we're really just both trying to get to fair here.
Yeah.
And it
But
seems
then
really
fair is so objective.
Yeah.
What's fair to me might not be fair to you. And that's why he says, like, anytime fair is in the game, you leave dissatisfied because there's, like, resentment on both people's part that their version of fair was not met.
Yeah, that's so true. It gets back to that. It should be a win-win-win. And I don't think I highlighted this yet, so I really, really want to. I think as women, we have the word negotiation in our head mean aggressive. Mm-hmm. We have the word negotiation in our head mean assertive, aggressive, bully. Like, it has all these annotations, because I bet you that every single person listening to this podcast who's female could think of at least 5 negotiations where they felt very bullied into something that they didn't want to do, or bullied into something that they didn't want to pay, or bullied into an extra work project that they didn't have capacity to do, et cetera, et cetera. But what I love about his strategy is it all comes from a place of understanding the other person. There is nothing in any of these tools that he's given us that are at all aggressive or assertive. In fact, it always works better, even like the late night FM DJ voice, to come from a place of calm. Yeah. Calm is your friend. To come from a place of empathy, to come from a place of support. And so I think as women, we're probably naturally predetermined to do a way better job of applying these tools than men in general. Don't hate in the comments, men, if you listen to this podcast.
We're going to get like roasted online for that. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, come at me. Yeah. No, please don't come at me. Yeah. But there's lots of research around this is the same reason why women statistically make better CEOs, because we lead from a place of empathy. We lead from a place of compassion. We naturally just have more of those skills because we're raised that way. Like, we're raised to be the feelers, we're raised to provide support, be the nurturers, all those kinds of things. So I actually think that women have the skills to be badass negotiators because we tend to be heart-centered a little more naturally than our male counterparts.
Well, it's funny because you said, like, I bet you felt that, like, you've been a part of a negative negotiation. And actually, he talks about in the book about why going for the no is, like, the best thing, because oftentimes when people go into negotiations, that's what kind of opinion they have on it, is like they've been forced into negotiating a yes.
Yeah.
And people find that so frustrating. But if you can
get them to say no.
Yeah, if you can get them to say no, it opens up a little bit more dialogue and trust within that, which is, great. Even though, like, the connotations around no are like, ugh, I never want to receive a no. I don't like getting a no. It does open a bigger door.
Yeah, and he says when people say yes to you in a negotiation setting, most of the time, depending culturally, but this is probably even more so in Canada, they say yes to get you to go away. They say yes to make the conversation shorter. Yeah. So in a lot of cases, yes actually means no, but no gives them a sense of control. Can I just give you a couple questions that give you an example of how to say no? Because to be clear, we don't want you to give them a contract that you want them to sign and then try to get them to say no to that. That is not where we're going with this. We want to give the other person in the conversation a safe opportunity to say no. So we would ask things like, would it be a bad idea to revisit pricing? Or, is now a terrible time to talk about this? or would it be unreasonable to adjust the scope? Which is actually so different than saying, I'd like to adjust the scope. Is that okay? They would say yes. And that would be maybe truthful or maybe not.
Yeah.
But if they want to adjust the scope and you can get them to answer that as a no, would it be unreasonable to adjust the scope? And they get to say no. Now you've put that person in a place of feeling in control, feeling powerful. And in that way, then again, you're on the same team working collaboratively rather than this adversarial type of situation.
Right. I love that for us ladies, you know?
Yeah.
And those questions were great because it was kind of going for the no, but also opening up huge opportunity for communication.
Yeah, and huge opportunity to do things like change the pricing up.
Yeah, up
or
upwards.
adjust the scope up. We didn't say, would it be unreasonable to expand the scope? It just says, would it be unreasonable to adjust the scope? Then they say, no, it wouldn't be unreasonable. And then that opens the door for you to talk about expanding the scope.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is so smart. I kid you not, every time I read this book, I just can't put it down.
Yeah, it's one of those
so
books that you
interesting.
can reread and reread, and you'll take something different from every time you do it.
And it's not textbooky at all. He has such entertaining stories about how this has been used in business, in personal life, with kids, with hostage takers, with fugitives.
Right.
I mean, there just really isn't a boring page in the entire book.
Okay, well, with that said,
He didn't sponsor or pay us.
No, we're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored or anything
We're
like
just
that.
big fans.
We're just big fans.
well,
Hey,
with that
maybe
said-
we should tag him and see if he will comment.
Sure, yeah, we can do that.
Chris,
I
say
have
hello to us. We
yeah.
love you.
Even just a comment would be so cool. I have some rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Set, go. Best negotiation mistake you've made.
The best one or the biggest one?
Best negotiation mistake you've made.
I'm trying to think of one that actually worked in my favor.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So one time, I think I told this story on the pod before, but one time I was going to leave a job and I got an offer from another place. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, here's my 2 weeks. I'm leaving. I found a role. They're going to pay me more. And then they were like, oh, okay. So what do you want? And I was like, I want this. And it was like, pretty high. As a female, like, asking for more than what you think is always like crazy. And they're like, okay, yep, we'll match it. So then I go back to the other place and I'm like, oh, my boss wants to keep me. And they're like, well, if your boss wants to keep you, that probably means that you're good. So we'll offer you more than what they offered you.
Nice.
And I'm like, ah! So then I go back and anyways, whatever. It was a back and forth. Not even in my mind was I realizing until like later that I was like negotiating for myself. I was just in the moment.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if I would have read this book first?
I know.
So
If we only knew in our 20s
What
we
we
now
know
me in my whatever I am now,
29.
of course, or 39. I'd take 39. I thought of one. So every now and again, we have a very difficult client.
Yeah.
And by that, I just mean personalities don't align or values don't align, or for whatever reason, it just seems like everything is difficult all the time. And so a long time ago, I had a conversation with one of these clients, and the conversation was about them leaving. I wanted to encourage them to leave. And so I listed all the reasons why, like, hey, there's lots of accountants out there that might be a good fit for you. At that point in my career, it never even occurred to me to increase the price. And guess what? Because this person had an adversarial kind of personality, like they just liked to say no to everything or kind of argue. It's kind of their vibe.
Yeah.
They argued their way back into staying a client and paying more money.
And
I was like, what just happened? And how do I make that happen again? I remember coming off the call and just being very confused and not really sure that I was happy with the result, but I was way happier than I was like with how the relationship was before. So I was like, look at that. I guess we'll see how this goes.
To them.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe
I just
that
was
was
like,
it.
I'm not right for you. You can do so much better. And they're like, maybe their thought was like, oh, well, there's got to be a reason. Like, why am I
don't you
being
want
left
me?
out?
Yeah.
It was very strange. And it's never happened since then because I haven't really done that to that extent since then. But I remember just kind of feeling like a rock star, but also being very confused.
Fair. One phrase you'll use from now on from the book.
How am I supposed to do that? How would you like me to do that?
Yeah, he does talk about that.
So it's how you get the other person to negotiate against themselves, really. And for me, I feel like there are so many applications for that one phrase in life and in business. I also feel like you have to really watch your delivery. Yeah. That's why I said it twice, because the first time I said, I was like, how am I supposed to do that? I think that is not the right way to say it. I think you could say something like, can you help me understand how I could achieve that result given my current level of resources? Or how would you suggest I go about making that happen for you? Or something like that. You can't just say, how am I supposed to do that? I mean, I think if you're Chris Voss, you could probably make it work with his late night FM DJ voice, but we've all determined I don't have one of those.
Yeah.
But I think some version of how am I supposed to do that in a situation where you're negotiating will either get you an answer where you can, which would be great, but oftentimes help the other person kind of adjust their expectations because really it's informational. They don't know what you know. You don't know what they know. So, for example, I had a client say to me recently, well, you're just putting the numbers in and submitting it. And I was like, I mean, I can completely understand how from where you sit, it looks like that's what we do. Yeah. I totally get it. Obviously, that's not what we do. But, so it helps bridge that informational gap and also gets the other person working on how to solve your problem, which I love because we all have enough problems. Let someone else solve it.
Yeah. Biggest myth about negotiation.
Yeah.
I think the biggest myth that I can take away from this book is it's not a negative thing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the myth is, it comes across negative, but it's not.
I think the biggest myth about negotiation is that it's across a boardroom table or it's a contract or it's a thing. Arguably, there's negotiation. Yeah. After reading this book, arguably there's negotiation in every single conversation that you'll have in a day in some form or other. So maybe not every, but probably like 60 to 80% if I was to put a number on it. So I challenge you, our listeners, just go through your life as normal and start thinking, did I just negotiate that? Was that a negotiation? Because really, negotiation is about collaboration and creating win-win situations and problem solving. Mm-hmm. So I think people think of it very much like in the movies, you fold up the piece of paper and you slide it across the table. I've always wanted to do that, by the way. It's not the right way to do it per the book, but don't you think it would just be fun? Yeah. Anyway, and then the other person looks at it and they cross it off and they write a number. But that's not it. We negotiate in every minute of our lives and everything we do because really we're out there trying to do what's best for ourselves and so is everybody else. Yeah. And sometimes things align and sometimes they don't. So for me, I think the biggest myth is that it happens at certain times in your life for only very narrow types of things when really it's everywhere all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so this brings us to your favorite point in the podcast where we do a 3-point wrap up. Jen, take it away.
Okay, here is my 3-point highlight reel. I think first, the big one is that negotiation is emotional, not logical. So empathy and all those kinds of things are going to be key. I think the second thing we have to remember is to make sure that we understand that people need to feel heard. And that really, most of it is just about identifying truly what they want because it's never the statement that they first say. There's always so many things underneath it. And the more you can uncover about the actual problem, the more likely you are to find a win-win situation. And I think last but not least is compromise or splitting the difference is a win. It's a lose-lose. It's not even a win-lose, it's a lose-lose. And so I think in everything we do, if we could strive for a win-win by really actively listening, we will be rock star negotiators and create a whole bunch of opportunities where everybody involved gets what they want.
Yeah. And with that said, that was your episode of Ambition After Hours. Don't forget to get the book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And follow us on all our platforms. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can find us on Apple Music and Spotify. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.